Hey, thank you so much for watching, listening. Of course, I want you to subscribe. We've got great content on this channel or on this, whatever you call the platform, however you watch, listen. But of course, I want you to subscribe, and we're continuing our series on being disappointed with Jesus. And you're like, what? We're not supposed to be disappointed with Jesus. Okay, maybe you're not supposed to, but it happens. Now what? Now what? When and if you get disappointed with Jesus, what do you do with that? And that's what we're reading and looking into kind of in depth in John chapter 11, when Lazarus dies and Martha and Mary are disappointed, hurt, maybe frustrated, even angry with Jesus for letting Lazarus die. So we looked at Martha's reaction and conversation with Jesus, and that was pretty amazing. And Jesus introducing, I am the resurrection and the life. And then we looked at the conversation between Mary and Jesus that was basically an emotional, the context of it was all emotions, Mary wailing and Jesus being deeply troubled and moved in his spirit. And it says Jesus wept. But I also want you to appreciate that we're going to look at a third. We looked at Martha, we looked at Mary, and now we're going to look at the Jews who were with Martha and Mary in support. They came from Jerusalem to mourn with Martha and Mary, to comfort them, to be present with them in their loss. So they're not just processing this death and grief by themselves. So there's support around them and people who want to participate and be present and support and help these sisters. And so Martha and Mary, we know, had a pretty close relationship with Jesus, such that they could summon him, come and heal the one you love. But I would call them spectators. They're kind of on the more exterior of the relationship. They watch this whole thing too. And I think it's important for us because sometimes we're that really close, Martha, Mary, experiencing Jesus and wrestling and frustrated. But sometimes we're the spectator. We're watching from the outside, watching what Jesus does, how Jesus participates, his involvement. And so these spectators who came to be a support to Martha and Mary, they also watched Jesus. And it's interesting to see because in John 11:34, the shortest verse of the Bible, it says, Jesus wept, right? Jesus wept. I remember in Sunday school, we used to get a prize for, like some kind of prize for memorizing a Bible verse. And I was like, woo, Jesus wept. And they're like, that's cheating. I'm like, no, it's not cheating. You said a verse and I did it. Jesus wept. It's, a noun and a verb. The end. Where's my prize? You're like, that's not right. Well, it's what I did. Anyways, pastor's kid, you learn to be kind of cheeky and figure out how to work the system. But I like what it says after it says Jesus wept. And it says in verse 35, the Jews, the spectators who were circling around, who were there to support Martha and Mary, this is what they said. See how he loved him. I think that's really amazing. That as we watch, we might go watch somebody go through grief and a struggle and a hardship. But it's interesting to also to watch the ways that Jesus loves and the expressions. And they acknowledge, they're like, wow, he's deeply moved in his soul, such that he cries. He cries. And let's recognize Jesus wasn't crying at the loss of Lazarus. I think Jesus knew he's going to raise him from the dead, based on his conversation with Martha. But I think the reason Jesus was crying and Jesus was moved was looking at the outpouring of grief from these Jews and from Mary. Jesus was moved by their grief. And I think that's equally true today. Jesus is moved by our pain, our struggle, our grief, our loss. Jesus sees us in that loss, in that struggle, in that hardship. And he's moved and he loves us. And people around us and us as well. Let us watch for the ways and expressions that Jesus shows love. Jesus shows love in a lot of different ways. In this situation, Jesus wept. But he shows love sometimes with patience. Jesus shows love with unexpected opportunities. Jesus shows love with favor. Jesus shows love with forgiveness. Jesus shows love with generosity. Jesus shows love in so many different ways. Little tiny things that are little helps here and there. Maybe it gives you strength, and a little bit of an extra boost of energy. Maybe Jesus opens a door for you that you didn't anticipate, or helps you to see something in a way, never thought of it. That Jesus loves us. And these Jews saw that. See how he loved him. And then the Jews said the same thing, basically, that Martha and Mary had said. And they said this, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind, referencing John chapter 9, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind prevented this man from dying? Could not he have healed Lazarus? It's the same, in essence, it's the same thing. Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. We know that you can heal. And that's what I think I want to bring to your attention. In all three of these individuals, Martha, Mary, and the spectator Jews, they all knew that Jesus loves, right? I mean, Martha and Mary said, the one you love is sick. That's when they sent to Jesus. And the Jews, they said, see how he loved. And they recognized Jesus loves. And you and I think we probably could say, yeah, Jesus does love. We know Jesus loves. And then the other thing they knew is that Jesus heals. If you showed up in time, my brother wouldn't have died. Couldn't this man who opened the eyes of the blind prevented this guy? Jesus heals. And there are two things that all of these groups, they show and they know and they speak. It's a reality. Jesus loves and Jesus heals. But I want us to appreciate that those are not the only things that Jesus does. Jesus is the teacher. That's what Martha said to Mary. He's the teacher. He's the healer. But then I also like what Jesus said to Martha. I am the resurrection. Jesus has the capacity to blow your mind, to go way beyond what you could anticipate, think, pray for in your natural thinking. He exceedingly abundantly does far more than we ask or think. And I think that the Jews, Martha, Mary, I think they saw this loss, Lazarus' death, as a tremendous, not even obstacle, impossibility. And I want us to consider in our own thoughts, in our own ways, in our own life, have we limited Jesus just with our own perceptions? It's too late. Remember time. Jesus delayed on time. It's too late with death as opposed to healing, resurrection. Have we limited Jesus? Have we asked Jesus to do something and he didn't do it, but he did it in a different way or did something different and answered the prayer, but like not the way we thought? Are we open to that possibility, or have we gotten stuck in the hurt, the disappointment, the frustration? I think that's a really important question to ask ourselves, because when we get stuck, I think we miss the opportunity, miss the experience of resurrection. And when you read through this whole thing, it says, Jesus asked, where have you laid him? And it says, Lord, come and see. And Jesus says, roll away the stone. And Martha says, Lord, he stinks. He's decomposing. His flesh is rotting. And so we know that Martha was with Jesus when Jesus came to Lazarus' tomb, and we know that the Jews, because they said, come and see. They said, come and see. But we don't know about Mary. We don't know that Mary came with everybody. The last time we see her, she had fallen at Jesus' feet, weeping in grief, in almost all-consuming grief. Did she go and experience and see her brother raised from the dead? I don't know. It doesn't tell us. But I think it's important for us to think about that, because sometimes when we get stuck in the grief and the disappointment, the hurt, the frustration, then we don't get to see above it the things that Jesus is doing. So I just encourage you, when you've been disappointed with Jesus, don't hold on to the disappointment and the frustration and the anger more than you hold on to Jesus, because we need him. We need Jesus far more than we need our emotions and disappointment and frustrations. We may not understand it all, but we can trust that he's good, that he's loving, he's all powerful, and nothing is impossible for him. not even something that seemed to happen in the past. He can completely redeem, restore, repair, heal, and resurrect. So thank you so much for subscribing. Hit the notification bell right there. Keep you posted when we have new content. And here's a question I'd ask you to just answer briefly. What is something you want Jesus to do? You're like, that's an easy question. And it doesn't have to be something really massive. It could be something small. It could be something medium. But what is something you want Jesus to do? And as we finish, I want to encourage you. I have this amazing joke. It's just really stupid. I actually wrote a book on how to fall down the stairs. It's a step-by-step guide. I know, like that's grown worthy. But next week will be lots better.